Hey buds, welcome to another week of the Homegrown Helpers. This is your host, Rob Smith, bringing you another homegrown interview jam-packed with advice to help you excel at cannabis cultivation. I'm so pumped to be helping you on your journey to grow better, cleaner, healthier medicine. And this week, my guest shares the same sentiments. I gotta tell you, this interview was recorded months ago, like almost a year ago. And at the time, I had intentions of continuing to explore the first wave of the Homegrown Helpers, the first edition, and that was working with consultants. And really, I just found so much passion and enjoyment out of talking with home growers just like you that I just wanted to continue on that mission. And it's really, diving headfirst into just one topic or one theme really has brought out the gold, I think, and I hope you agree. You all continue to listen, so I assume that's the case. So this interview was recorded a long time ago, and it's a bonus episode for you guys, and I'll tell you why it's a bonus episode. But first, AJ Tibayan joins me from above the border. He goes by CanCannGrows everywhere, CanCannGrow, everywhere. That's because, he's a Canadian, and Canadians can grow, if you get that. And, we talk a lot about IPM and really detailed steps, how to increase your yield. And a lot of the other questions that I got to ask also come up in the bonus episodes. So typically when I did these consultant interviews, I published a bonus episode on my website, thehomegrownhelpers.com. If you want to hear a bunch of that stuff, you can go back, give me your email address, and then you get access to all of it, thehomegrownhelpers.com/bonus. But instead of doing that for this episode, I just decided to lump it all together. So you're going to get an extra long episode, lots of questions, lots of details, lots of topics. And I'm so pumped to finally be able to share this with you guys. The reason that this is a bonus episode is because the doors to mygrowpass.com are open. That's right. It's finally your chance to join us and the other 200 plus members inside, where you get premium level access to Jordan and myself, Rizo Rich, Wolfman, and everybody else we have. You get the discounts, the giveaways, the audio content, the ad-free audio content, the members podcast, the archives, the AMAs, so much. The other thing is that membership prices will be going up. We're revamping a bunch of stuff in October and November before we open up again. So prices will be going up. The other thing is you can get a free trial. If you're hesitant, you can grab free 7-day trial at mygrowpass.com/trial and use the code FREE7 to just get 7 days on us. It's $3. It's not that big of a deal. But if you've been hesitant, you just want to see what it's all about, that's your ticket right there. What else is going on? Join our giveaway. That giveaway, you can find it at our link tr.ee/growcast or growcast.com, growcastpodcast.com/giveaway, mygrowpass.com/giveaway, all of that. It's a trim bag, guys. It's $350 worth of value. We want you to have it. Enter the giveaway. Join up. Simple. No reason not to do it. Before we get into this episode with AJ, I need to let you know about a brand new partner here joining us on October 1st. They aren't doing a discount. We got to earn that, guys. So if you reach out, let them know you heard them on the Homegrown Helpers or on GrowCast. And that is RainScience Grow Bags. They make the best grow bags on the market. They're really becoming the industry leader. We wanted to work with the best, and we finally got them on board. Check them out, RainScience Grow Bags. They're going to be doing giveaways with us throughout the next quarter. Mega giveaways, listener giveaways, member giveaways, all that jazz. RainScience Grow Bags. Show them some love. Let them know you heard about them here. Now let's get you into this interview with AJ. And welcome to the show, everybody. I have AJ Tibayan on the line. Welcome to the show, AJ.
Thanks for having me, Rob. Thanks for having me.
AJ, why don't we start you off and you just tell our audience a little bit about yourself. The company name, if you have one, where you're located, and how long you've been growing cannabis.
Sure. Yeah. So, my name's AJ Tibayan. I am in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. I operate under my brand, my online and social media brand, CanCannGrow. for everything I do with consulting and education in cannabis. And as far as I've had a relationship with the plant ever since I was in high school, but it was a bit of an on-off one as I started working in corporate America. And up here in Canada, when legalization, the possibility of legalization became very real. So I guess for me, anyways, it was just over 5 years ago. I kind of reacquainted myself and really dedicated myself to cannabis cultivation, because the idea that I might be able to make a living and in this space was very exciting to me. And so I kind of dove back into it just over 5 years ago, dedicated myself, did a lot of work with many different MMAR and ACMPR medical grows, and also started my own medical grow under an ACMPR license. And now am pursuing several different projects, and one of them is to write a book and start helping fellow cultivators by educating them any way that I can.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, I'm pleased to get you on the show. As the audience knows, we are shifting gears, but this is going to be part of a mini season, if you will. I'm going to release 4 episodes at a time that refocuses back on the consultants that are helping growers, because I think this side of the industry is important. There's lots of people out there that question whether they can grow cannabis at home on their own, or the quality that they'll get. And I think it's important that the consultants are out there kind of, helping people wade through the muck and the nonsense that is out there in the world about growing cannabis, and really simplify it for people and help them overcome whatever problems they arise in the garden, that, just kind of take the work out of it for people. And we want to continue to feature consultants like you. And I just want to say thanks for doing what you're doing. You're, I think, the 4th or 5th Canadian, and it kind of shows the booming cannabis industry that is happening up there, and it's thrilling to see.
100%.
So, AJ, can you tell us about your current grow setup? What size is the room? What type of grow medium are you in? Lights, number of plants, anything that you can tell us about that setup to bring our audience into that grow room with you?
Yeah, so I guess I would say I have a larger home grow setup than most, simply because one, my license allows for it, and 2, it kind of doubles as a bit of my R&D for my future commercial craft cannabis cultivation facility that I'm looking to open. But I currently have 6 5x5 flower tents under a 630 watt ceramic metal halide. I have 1 4x4 veg tent under a 315 watt ceramic metal halide. I have 1 6x6 mother and propagation room. I'm running about 20 T5s in there, and I have 1 2x4 tent for pheno hunts. And all of that I run, so they're all in grow trays. My veg tent is run under an ebb and flow, a flood and drain. And all of the flower tents, I run a hydroponic drip system. So there's separate reservoirs for each of the trays. And my grow medium in the veg and flower is 100% rock wool. And I run a sea of green with virtually no plant training, although we are testing different approaches with that in different time frames. And then in the mother room and for pheno hunts, I still do run the way I used to run things, which is air pots and pro mix. So it's still a soilless mix, in there.
So what are you feeding these plants? You're in Rockwell. Did I miss that?
Yeah, I'm in Rockwell, and currently, I have a lineup of various nutrients I'm looking to test, but to this point, I've been running the general hydroponics 3-part, and I really don't run. I've always felt with nutrients, less is more, and I do run their Floralicious additive throughout flower, but other than that, nothing else. I do use their silica and their CalMag, but I'm going to be migrating to away from the bottled newts and going with some sort of powdered nutrient line, maybe a Jax, maybe a Floraflex. So we're going to be testing a few of those out to see what type of results we can get.
Cool. Yeah, we are very close to confirming and sealing the deal with a partnership for our GrowPass members and our listeners too, with Floraflex and their nutrient line as well as their feeding tops, watering drip trays, all that type of stuff. So our members are going to be able to get, I think, 25% off of their nutrients and all their other fixtures there. So pretty excited about that.
Wow, that'd be really exciting.
Yep.
They definitely. I've been of all the different manufacturers out there. I've definitely been impressed with a lot of the stuff they've come out with recently.
Yeah. I mean, the powder nutrients are huge savings for people. To be able to take a tablespoon and mix it into a gallon is amazing. So you gave us a really incredible rundown of your rooms, and I really appreciate that, or should I say tents and rooms. I think I missed, how many plants are you licensed under your medical license to grow?
My license allows me to grow 300.
Holy.
So it's a little bit different. Like I said, I do run a sea of green in a 4x4 tray at any given time, depending on cultivar and what I'm after. I'm running anywhere from 16 to 32 plants. Not exactly like what you see from someone like Uncle Reefer on Instagram, but definitely a sea of green setup where we let the plants, shorter, but kind of grow naturally. But yeah, at any given harvest, I'm harvesting anywhere from 16 to 70 plants. So.
And you don't do any plant training. Does that include topping?
Like I said, I am testing with different cultivars and recording what yield. So I should explain that, for the purposes here, I aim to have nearly 6 cycles per year, and that's where. So it's not so much the amount of yield per harvest, but it's a bit of a quicker turnaround. So I have done a couple runs where I topped once and allowed it to, so maybe done a slightly longer veg, because I do all my runs from cuttings, and I have a very short veg. Depending on cultivar, veg is only 10 to 14 days. But if I do top, it's more of a 3-week veg. So we're kind of playing around with what's going to work better. If I do top and we let it bush out a little bit more, I can run less plants in the tray without any gaps in the canopy, and so we're just trying that out. But other than that, other than lollipopping and a slight defoliation here and there, just due to it's actually part of my IPM, not so much for yield, but to prevent some pathogens from taking hold. Other than that, I don't do much plant training.
Okay. One last question before we move past this. Did you say what size pots you're in? What size Rockwell cubes? Or?
Well, no, it's all Rockwell. So it starts in the AOK. I do the cuttings in the AOK, 1 inch by 1 inch cubes, and then that in veg goes into a 4x4 by 2.5 inch Grodan Rockwell cube, and
Yep.
then for flower that'll get stacked on top of a 6x6x6 Hugo.
I love the detail. Thank you.
Yeah.
I love digging into, people's setups like that.
Yeah, no problem. I will say that my mother plants are in very, very small. I think they're like half a liter. I call them solo cup air pots.
Okay.
It allows me to keep them a little small without them getting root bound. But
Sure.
those are the only pots I'm using now.
Cool. Awesome. So AJ, we're going to switch things up here a little bit as we switch up the podcast flow. We're going to switch up the questions a little bit. So we're going to remove a question, pop one in here, and rearrange things. So let's start you off with the yield question. What can a grower do to increase the yield off of a single plant? Believe it or not, AJ, most of us are limited to the number of plants we can grow, and that number is not 300. Most of us down here are limited to 4 or 6 flowering plants, and as I'm sure recreational growers in Canada are limited to 4. So with that in mind, what can a grower do, in your opinion, to increase the yield off of those limited plant counts?
I think the most important thing is to have a plan. I just think that you need to have a plan that will allow you to dictate what your decisions are to increase your yield. I think the mistake sometimes for growers to just do, so they'll garner some good advice or good information. They'll try a bunch of different things, but sometimes they don't work well together, or it just doesn't help them. So I tell people they got to have a plan. You got to have something to aim for. What is, when it comes to yield, what are you trying to get? It's not good enough, in my opinion, to just say, I want to grow the most. Well, when you have a specific target, that'll help you decide which cultivar, for example. So just to give some examples how that'll help. I mean, if you're really, really big on yield, then you may not want to get a cultivar that, traditionally just isn't a huge yielder. I think when you have a plan, then you're not just going to try 10 different plant training techniques to accomplish that. The other thing is that, as part of having a plan, what is your objective? Are you looking for, if you, like you said, here in Canada, four plant count limit, am I looking for 1 or 2 huge harvests a year? Or do I need, more consistent supply of my medication? Those are going to dictate what I'm going to do to get the most out of each grow. So if I just want a huge harvest, then for sure I'm going to probably recommend quite a bit of strategic plant training. You're probably looking at a much longer veg time, but you're going to be able to yield significantly more per plant. But if I need more of a steady flow, then I might suggest a shorter veg time, a little bit less plant training, so you don't stress them out in that short time frame. But it'll allow you to maybe do a bit more of a perpetual harvest, which over a year is going to yield you more. So I just think that, have a plan and allow that to dictate what your approach is going to be.
Great advice. A man without a plan is a man without success, in my opinion. Before we keep going on this great interview with AJ from Above the Border, I need to let you know about a friend of our show, Dr. Coco, Dr. MJ Coco. He has graciously partnered with us, dedicating his time to be on GrowCast, on our member podcast. He's on a ton of different channels. He's in our Slack group, our GrowPass growers community, every Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. He has a plant training growing challenge going on right now. His forum, he's really dedicated to your success, our success, grower love. Everybody grows together. And what else is coming up is that he's also going to be giving away some of his time. So part of our new member gifts, part of our regular quarterly prizes are going to be 20-minute consultations with Dr. Coco. So The only way to get those consultations, because he doesn't do this for anybody else, guys. This is exclusive to GrowPass, GrowCast, and the Homegrown Helpers. The only way to do that is go to mygrowpass.com and sign up today. That's right, today. Because on October 1st, we do the drawing, and he's going to want to set that consultation up as soon as he can for you. So, much love to Coco for Cannabis, Dr. MJ Coco. Check him out. Support us. Support the show. mygrowpass.com. AJ, let's move on to integrated pest management. And why don't you tell our audience about your protocols and how you keep that sea of green and your garden healthy?
Sure. I think the first thing to understand with IPM for anyone, and it's definitely my approach, is understanding that there's kind of two different, I'll say phases, although it might not be the right word, but there's prevention and then there's treatment. And when you approach IPM, I think it's important to understand what you're up against. You're up against a quote unquote enemy that is basically working 24 hours a day to, I guess, initially to infiltrate your garden. And if they're successful at that, then they work 24 hours a day to win the battle. So I think having a bit of that insight will give people an idea of just how important it is to be consistent with whichever IPM regimen you decide to follow. Like many others, for me, the preventative action is a very clean environment. In my particular setup, I run a sterile environment. I don't run any beneficial bacteria because I run sterile reservoirs with H2O2 and so on and so forth. So, and that includes the, physical cleanliness of the grow. I guess my own protocols and, in entering the grow and so on and so forth, things I think have been discussed on your show before. But in addition to that, I don't like to use many. Actually, I only have one go-to product for my IPM, and that's sulfur dust foliar spray in veg. So that has proven to be significant efficacy for me with preventing any issues from taking hold. And I think the last thing with the IPM is to have I'm fortunate to have someone like Matthew Gates. Shout out to Matthew Gates. He's a Think Angel on Instagram and Zentinol on YouTube on kind of speed dial when it comes to IPM. But so that's the preventative side of it. Once it comes to the treatment side, if you're in the unfortunate situation, which is pretty frequent, because like I said, you're battling something that's 24 hours against you. If something takes hold in your garden, then you need to, I think the most important thing is to diagnose it correctly. Make sure you know exactly what has taken hold, what's gotten into your garden before you start doing something. I think a lot of people sometimes tend to jump to Dr. Google and may misdiagnose, and sometimes taking action prematurely may make the problem worse than make it better. So make sure you diagnose it correctly and then take the proper action, whether that's, there's some phenomenal products that people can use. I know I've heard great things from people in my network for Lost Coast plant therapy. I know another one is the amazing Dr. Zymes to help with battling, issues, pests and pathogens should you encounter them. So if that's the case and you're forced to have to go that route, then just make sure you're diligent with it.
So I've never talked to anybody that does a sulfur dust foliar spray, but I know sulfur is very effective, and some people even burn sulfur in their rooms for cleanliness. Is sulfur dust along the same lines of that?
Yeah, absolutely. I just, I'm not a huge fan of burning sulfur. It gets absolutely everywhere.
Sure.
But sulfur dust applications. So again, I choose to do it. You can actually use a duster and kind of just dust it on the way some people might try and do with diatomaceous earth, for example. But I find that it's the efficacy is much better with a small surfactant and then and then just spraying it. I spray it once a week throughout veg, all the way from actually when taking cuttings and clones throughout veg as a preventative. And I won't flip a run until I know that they're 100% clean. And usually with the sulfur dust applications, they are. So
cool.
But it's definitely something, if you know, for your viewers, if they are going to try that, it's definitely something you don't want to be doing in flower, because sulfur dust doesn't dissolve in water. It just stays on the plant. So you don't want that on your buds. And it's not something that will play nice with many other products if you're using other products in your regimen, particularly oil-based products. It will literally burn your plant. So keep that in mind.
Is there a suggested mixing ratio? Because I know sulfur being too strong can burn your plants. So do you have like a tablespoon of dust to a gallon of water type of mixing suggestions?
Yeah, I believe it's, I use Safer's brand sulfur dust, and it's 1 tablespoon per liter of water.
So let's move on to the new question, and we kind of pulled this out of the bonus questions there. Let's talk about, you know, a failure in the garden, or maybe even your biggest failure in the garden, and talk about how you overcame and corrected it, and then prevented it from happening again.
So fortunately, I haven't had many huge failures. Actually, probably the one biggest challenge is still something that I'm sorting through right now. And it was about a year ago that powdery mildew made its way into my garden, and it is a formidable enemy.
Yep.
And it is pretty relentless. So at this point, the one great thing about, I guess, having this particular issue is I have done an immense amount of research and have an arsenal of tools to battle something like powdery mildew. And at this point, I think I've got it pretty much under wraps. I'm just under the process of completely replacing all my carbon filters and sanitizing all my flower rooms so that it is pretty much eradicated. So some of the things, in case your viewers encounter powdery mildew, some of the things that you can use to battle that is you can use things to sanitize the air, like ozone generators, or actually slow release chlorine dioxide. Chlorine dioxide is a little bit safer than the ozone generator. The ozone generator you're going to want to use when you're not in the garden, but you can use short bursts of UVC light. There are some products out there that will allow you, and that will kill airborne and or actually to kill any mold spores that it shines on, that it comes in contact with. So there are several different ways, but yeah, powdery mildew has to be probably the biggest challenge I've ever come against. When it comes to pests, I've battled with thrips and spider mites, and as long as you're diligent, you can eradicate those. But powdery mildew has been the biggest challenge to date.
Awesome. Let's move on to my favorite question, and kind of the question I think, says the most about our guests as well. What type of character traits are the most important for a grower to cultivate within themselves in order to succeed in the grow room?
Yeah, so I'm going to say you have to go back to school. So the character trait is really, you got to have a student mentality. I have found in my experience that the best and smartest cultivators I know are the best students. They're the ones, it's so funny. You'll find a very respected cultivator, and they're going to be asking questions. And so I was always taught you have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason.
Boom.
Use them in that proportion.
Love it.
So yeah, learn to be a student, and that will always make you. And the fact is that we're in a time right now where virtually everyone is a student. The reason I say that is with legalization on the horizon for so many places, we've only just begun to see scientific research and factual evidence of every area in this industry and of this plant, and that includes cultivation. So, there are going to be discoveries, and there are discoveries right now, which makes everybody a student. So, I think that the most important factor is to have a student mentality for sure.
That is a great answer. I think we're, in the midst of an age where people are afraid to ask some questions. People poke fun of people for asking certain questions. And I've seen it in the cannabis industry, and more often than not, though, I definitely have seen 95% of the people working booths or in the industry being willing to answer questions. And this, the same question can be asked 100 times in the course of a day when you're working a booth at a trade show. So it can wear on you a little bit. But the majority of people out there are willing to answer those questions and give you the information that they can, about their products or their grow styles or whatever. And just like this interview, you're doing a great job at answering all our questions. So thanks again for joining us, AJ.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that. And I just think, specifically with, and I'm sure you experienced this, specifically with cultivation, I have so much respect for the cultivators that have gotten us to this point. But, a lot of the approaches, a lot of the ideas and grow methods that were developed in basement and closet grows, I think it's important to kind of keep your mind open, because they may not exactly, it served a great purpose when it was being grown in the shadows. But now, as it comes out to the light, so to speak, we're learning that just some of those things, and I mean this with no disrespect, but some of those things, for lack of a better way of putting it, are kind of like bro science, and we can advance ourselves and we can learn better. And I feel as an educator or as a consultant that I owe it to people who I interact with to learn much more than I try and teach, because that's the only way we're going to move forward, in my opinion.
Right on, right on. So let's wrap things up here before we get into the bonus content. And as a reminder, audience, with these consultant interviews, I'm still going to do our bonus content, even though I'm going to get away from that with our kind of home grower interviews. But with these consultant interviews, we're going to stick with them. You can head on over to thehomegrownhelpers.com/bonus and download the next 5 questions that I have here for AJ. But before we get to that, any last bits of advice that you'd like to pass on to everybody listening to you right now, AJ?
Yeah, I think that, again, we live in a very, advantageous time where we can network easier and better than we ever could. So my advice is, if you are a cultivator of any skill level, build a team around you, or build a network around you that's going to support you throughout your journey in cannabis cultivation. And when I say that, we're not just, cannabis cultivators that have to know everything. There are specialists in each area. And I'm fortunate, for example, to have built, I guess, a bit of a family or network of cultivators that I'm super blessed to be surrounded with. I'm going to give a shout out to the Cheap Home Grow podcast. And I mentioned earlier, I've had a chance to build a great relationship with an entomologist, Matthew Gates, and whatever I know about IPM is only a fraction of what he can help me and share with me. And then I've managed to build a great relationship with people like Dr. MJ Coco and Jack Greenstock and so many more, on that panel, Kyle Breeder. and Shane McCormick and so on and so forth. So I consider this my team when it comes to cannabis cultivation, and there's no way I would be able to be as successful as I have been or know what I know without surrounding myself with people like that. So that's my advice. My advice is you have the ability to connect with people like you couldn't do before. Like if you wanted to reach out to Miami Mango, you can go ahead, just, drop them a DM. And all of a sudden you have, a resource that is pretty unbelievable. So that's my advice.
Awesome. Yeah. Shout out to Miami Mango, one of the original first handful of guests on the show. Might have been our first interview we released. Definitely in the first 4. I forget what order they ended up in. So last question for you on this part, AJ. How can our audience connect with you, learn more from you, and ask you some questions if they so desire?
Yeah, so I have several different social media. I'm on several different social media platforms, but the ones I'm most active on are my YouTube, which is at CanCannGrows, CanCannGrow, and it's the same on Instagram. You can reach out to me on Instagram. You can email me at CanCannGrow@gmail.com. And I probably have most of my content up on Patreon. I have a Patreon. Again, it's CanCannGrow on Patreon. And I have a website that is being built and should be up and running in the next few weeks. And that's CanCannGrow.com.
Great. Thank you. And before we get out of here, I did want to ask, where does your application for your craft cannabis license stand? How's that process going?
So I have a consultant that I'm working with. We kind of got a little bit stalled. We had some investors that were going to jump on board. Unfortunately, that kind of fell through. So right now we are, I guess, in the process of just securing funding, additional funding to get us going. I mean, we have a couple of locations that we've kind of looked at. And it's just a matter of securing the funding so we can get city approval, local law enforcement, and then get the ball rolling. Now, with that said, it's kind of a bit of a blessing in disguise. I know that some of the requirements and in the process of starting the micro cultivation license has changed. So it's kind of helped us out a little bit, actually. And I'm excited to kind of see here, at least in Ontario, the government has lifted the limitation on the number of dispensaries that they're allowing. So that is going to make it much more attractive, I guess, for producers, just because there's going to be many more outlets for them. So it'll be interesting for us. So we're going to kind of take a second and gauge the dispensary landscape over the next few months before we decide on where our actual location is going to be for distribution purposes and so on and so forth. So that's kind of where we're at right now. I've assembled most of the team, and I am really excited to move forward with it, but we're not going to rush.
Great. Awesome. Thanks for that update. You know what's more fun than more content? More content. Free resources. Head on over to mygrowpass.com/resources and you can take a gander at all of the stuff that we put out in the world for you to download and enhance your grow. It's a bunch of, downloadable type stuff, access to podcasts, archives, all that fun stuff. Hit up mygrowpass.com/resources. Now let's get you into the bonus content with AJ. All right, guys, we are back, and we're back with AJ Tibayan from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And we had a great conversation, as I'm sure you heard. And I really like AJ's approach to IPM in the garden and the two different phases, the prevention and treatment. And he introduced me to sulfur dust foliar spray, which I believe was Safer's brand, 1 tablespoon to 1 liter of water if you decide that that's something that you want to do. Just be careful. I'm pretty sure AJ would suggest maybe spraying with the lights off because the heat. Is that correct, AJ?
Yes, yeah, 100%.
Cool. All right, let's get into the bonus stuff here. AJ, you ready?
I am.
Awesome. So besides you and the cannabis plant, what is the one product or item that must remain in your garden in order for you to be successful?
So I think that this is probably a sign of the times, but for me, the one thing I couldn't do without in my garden would be anything in there that is set up for automation. It just makes my life so much easier and allows me to focus on the really important stuff in the garden. So in my garden, I have every single piece of equipment in my garden is accessible remotely and is connected via Wi-Fi to my network. And I can automate almost any process in my garden. So that automation has really been a lifesaver, particularly, I guess, on the home grow scale that I'm at. So the one thing I could think of that I couldn't work without would be the automation that I have in my garden.
Awesome. Great answer. What does your perfect grow look like? You have a client that comes to you. It's, they have all the time in the world. They just want to grow really amazing cannabis for them, their family, and their friends. And money is no issue. What does your perfect grow look like in that type of scenario with the size, the shape, number of plants, the type of lights? Give us a rundown there.
Wow, this is a dangerous question for a cultivator, but I just want to clarify. So we are talking about still sticking within our 6 or 4 plant count limit, correct?
Totally. Yep. Not our typical 300 plant count limit.
Yeah. So the ideal grow room would be a sealed grow room. I definitely put that in the realm of a more advanced kind of setup. But if we're talking about what would be the dream setup, a sealed grow room with an electronic environment controller to run that environment. Obviously, with sealed grow room, CO2 enhancement, probably through CO2 tank, because we're talking about a smaller size room. I would imagine for 4 or 6 plants, you could do it within a 10 by 10 room setup. Ideally, I would like to have rolling beds, just because it makes life so much easier to work with your plants. And I would definitely be running under LEDs. I'm a big fan of the strip lights just because of the coverage. So when I say that, form factor like what Fluence Bioscience, Science LED, and the Gavitas have put out. I also do like the quantum board format. I just think the coverage with some of those strip lights is much better. So, in a 10 by 10 room, I would probably be running 4 lights under that setup. And other than that, my chosen method of cultivating is the hydroponic setup with rock wool. I like the rock wool just because it's much cleaner. I think it's a personality thing. I've worked with dirt, and although I think it's a great media, I like the ease of use and the cleanliness of the rock wool setup. Plus, you can grow such huge plants in such a small amount of rock wool. So, and as I already have it, I would probably just have it under an automated drip system. I don't know if that entirely covers it. Probably the biggest cost there would be just environment controls, just to have something that is controls the environment so that I can focus on caring for the plants. That would be awesome.
Cool. Awesome. Let's see here. Let's do this one. The new question. Do you have any tips for increasing terpene production?
Any tips for increasing terpene production?
This is a curveball audience, so we might have to give AJ just a minute to think about this.
No worries. I mean, so to be, this may not be the flashiest answer, but for me, it's when it comes to terpene profile, even cannabinoid content and flavonoids and all of that good stuff. As a cultivator, probably the most important thing to me is to source out the proper genetics. I always say that I use the example of, I don't know if I'm dating myself here, but twins. You have Danny DeVito and Arnold Schwarzenegger. You're never going to turn Danny DeVito into Arnold Schwarzenegger in terms of physique. And when you start with, amazing genetics, you almost can't, mess that up. So if you have a cut or if you have, proven genetics that will produce the type of, in this question, the terpene profile that you're looking for, then, you've already won half the battle. I think the challenge for a lot of cultivators is that they start with, unfortunately, in this day and age, they start with poor genetics sometimes, either because it's what's easily accessible or other reasons. So starting with the proper genetics to get what you're looking for out of that is probably the most important thing, in my opinion. Other than that, there's thoughts out there that you can induce some stress late in flower to try and bring out cannabinoid and terpene development. I've never been a huge fan of doing a lot of that, one, because it just adds to the amount of effort that goes into doing a full run, and two, just because I haven't seen all the science to back it up, and maybe that is a little limiting. I'm definitely approach cultivation more from a data-driven and science approach, as opposed to the way that some approach it, which is more of an art, which I think is phenomenal. It's just not my personality. So I haven't tinkered with it with that. And fortunately, starting with the right genetics has always been great for me and producing stuff that I love. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
no, I think you did very well. Thank you. I think great genetics is the key to lots of success in the garden. So it's a great starting point that you brought up.
Yeah, and one note, one tip, recently I've been giving to a lot of people. If you can, and again, we're very fortunate in this day and age. If you have a particular cultivar that you're after, it's not very difficult to find the original producer of that and get your seeds or directly from them. It's much easier now than it was before. So that's what I advise. If you've heard great things, if you want some Mac, then, go straight to Cat. And if you want, something from DNA Genetics, then, you can buy directly from, DNA Genetics, Reserva Privada. You don't have to settle for questionable genetics anymore.
Yeah, people that are asking if they can plant the seeds that they found in the bag of weed that they bought from the dispensary. Save yourself a bag of weed one time and get yourself some decent seeds and start growing there. You'll save yourself a ton of money buying weed and grow better cannabis than you probably bought at that dispensary that one time. So if not, then one of our consultants can help you out with that. So what is your favorite strain to grow, AJ? Whether that is a historical strain or something that you're growing right now. Tell us about your favorite strain to grow.
It's always got a soft spot in my heart. I always loved growing White Widow. it's my favorite. And with the GG4 being a very close second.
What is it about the White Widow that you absolutely love growing?
Well, I had a pheno that just, talking about terpenes, it just had an amazing terpene profile, had a hint of this gas in it, and it was awesome. It was covered, it was resin covered, and it was it's so fun to grow. The bud structure was, I could go on and on, but it was everything I would look for in a plant, and it's always been a favorite of mine for sure.
Cool. And let's get on to a fun question here, AJ, to finish things out. We're going to bring you to a deserted island and let you finish out your days there. But we're going to supply you with an unlimited amount of your favorite strain. It's one strain of flower or oil. We'll let you decide which way you want to go there, and one way to consume it for the remainder of your days on this deserted island. What is that strain, and how are you choosing to smoke
it? Okay, so a bit away from the White Widow comment there. I'm going to kind of go back in the day. For me, probably my all-time favorite strain, which I haven't been able to get my hands on since, is a chocolate Thai, and I could probably just sit with that on an island. And nothing super fancy. Just give me some rolling paper, and I'm a happy camper. I don't need anything, I don't need bongs or vapes or whatever. Just give me some great dried flour and some rolling paper, chocolate Thai, and I'll be a happy man.
Do you have a preferred rolling paper?
One that sticks together.
So we'll bring you a fresh supply of rolling papers every once in a while. I know how that shit can get.
That's right.
Cool. Well, AJ, again, thanks so much for your time. Audience, you can find him at CanCannGrow. That's one N, then two N's, on YouTube and Instagram. Make sure you give him a follow. And if you're in the Toronto, Ontario area, look him up if you need some help managing your garden, overcoming a problem, or setting a few things up there, getting started. So, AJ, thanks so much again for your time. And audience, we will talk to you later. Happy growing.
Take care. Thanks so much, Rob.